I'm Shane Watson. I'm a coach with Natural Church Development and Fort Elm. And I'd like to share with you some tools that are available to you in the Salvation Army to help with action planning and application of the growth cycle. We're all about helping churches and church organizations become healthier places. And these tools are designed to help you with that in a simple and easy to understand way. In this guide, you'll find a summary of the growth cycle, some information about transformative action planning, a sample template for an action plan, an explanation of how to use 5 why analysis to effectively understand and identify barriers, and a description of how to use an impact effort grid to prioritize existing or potential new actions. This cartoon representation of the growth cycle uses the metaphor of a road trip to explain the key things that are important to understand about each phase of the cycle, moving from test and understand to plan, do, experience, and perceive. There's information here about transformative action planning. Effective action planning is enabled by good barrier identification. And good barrier identification is enabled by having a clear picture of current health. We need to do the test and understand phases effectively in order to enable good action planning. This example template of an action plan walks through all the key things that are important to developing fruitful outcomes. There's a space to identify the key insights about current health. What is inhibiting more wholeness, health, and fruitfulness? In other words, the barriers that we want to remove. A place to describe what life together would be like if those barriers were eliminated, and a spot to identify a few actions. We recommend a few simple and sustainable actions. You can tailor this to suit your context. There's a spot to identify what might need to stop or be changed in order to create capacity to implement the plan. How will actions be monitored and tracked? When will updates be provided? And how will we leverage our existing strengths? There's additional guidance and instructions, including links to some helpful videos, and a description of how to use 5 why analysis to understand barriers, and a guide to using the impact effort grid to prioritize actions. Let's talk about 5 why analysis for a minute. The 5 why method is a really simple but very powerful tool to dig beneath the surface and identify the real barriers, ones that are actionable. The idea is that we ask a series of why questions to get from a symptom to something that we can really act on. In this example, holistic small groups is the minimum factor identified through the NCD Church Survey. But that's not really something we can act on. By asking a series of why questions, we can be led to an actionable barrier. In this case, the actionable barrier might be that small group leaders are not equipped to cultivate trust, vulnerability, and spiritual depth. There's something we can act on, perhaps some training or some other small actions. Now let's talk about the impact effort grid. We can use this grid to help prioritize things and select those actions that are going to be most fruitful. By plotting all these actions or potential ideas on this grid, we can identify the quick wins. These are the high impact things that don't require much effort. We might want to do them right away. Those things that require more effort, but are still high impact, we might want to do, but they may require some more planning, and we might need to get some additional resources in place first. Those things that maybe have a lower impact, but don't require much effort, we might consider doing them, but maybe not until we find the time. Those ideas that are relatively low impact and high effort, we probably shouldn't do them. Now, this tool can also be used to evaluate existing activities that you might have on the go, particularly those activities that are identified as low impact and high effort. They're the things that we should probably leave behind in order to create capacity for new growth and fruitfulness. That's a quick walkthrough, this guide to transformative action planning. We hope that you'll find it useful in becoming more fruitful as you apply the growth cycle in your journey with God.